And welcome to today's Torah study. We're learning a new Parsha, Parshas Vayeitzei, which is about Jacob, introducing Jacob to the scene. Last week's Torah portion, we met the parents of Jacob, Rivka and Yitzchak, as they were struggling through their fertility woes. But today we're going to learn about how Jacob, his life falls apart. How do you manage when your life seems to be falling apart? The cookie just isn't crumbling in the right direction. It just isn't working out. What, pray tell, are you supposed to do? Think about it. Jacob. In the beginning of this week's Torah portion, the name is Vayeitzei, and he departed. Where did he depart from? He leaves the house of the righteous Isaac, his father, his grandfather, Abraham. He leaves Be'ersheva, he leaves the promised land, and he goes to where? To Iraq. He goes to Haran, a place, the name Haran in Hebrew means fury or anger, because it's a place of evil, of swindling, of...
Iraq? Not Iraq.
It was Iraq, yeah. In those days, it wasn't much different. But it's out there near the Euphrates, you know. He goes out there and he's heading out. He's running away. Why is he running away? Because his brother Esau is trying to kill him. Things aren't looking up and up. And if things aren't bad enough, he's departing towards he's leaving the promised land. And as he does so, he encounters his nephew, Eliphaz, son of Esau, who's instructed to kill him. And Eliphaz says, listen, Dad said I should kill you. So he says, well, what do you want me to do about that? So Jacob says, you know what, I got an idea. A poor man is considered as dead. So if you were to just take all my possessions, then I'm poor. Then it'd be like you fulfilled your obligation. And that's what he does. They come to an agreement. So Eliphaz takes all his possessions and he leaves and he proceeds just with his staff. Kiva makli avartes hayarden azeh, with just my staff, I crossed over the Jordan River. I mean, this is pretty bad. He's leaving the world that he knew. He's leaving the holiness of the land. He's leaving the righteous cocoon that he grew up in, and he's going to Lavan, to his wicked father-in-law. I mean, he doesn't know it's going to be his father-in-law, but he's going to find the wife, and he meets his four wives actually out there in Haran, which is the good part. But his father-in-law could not have been worse. So how do you react when life doesn't seem to be working out for you? Hey, it's not pretty, right? But remember, Jacob is not just a character in our history. He's our patriarch. So we can actually learn so much wisdom to glean from the nuances that the Torah tells us about what happens to Jacob in this land. Let's take a look at what happens then, right? So page 175, Jacob left Beersheba and he went to Haran. So the first thing that happens to him is that he came to the place, Mount Moriah. He spent the night there because the sun had set. He took some of the stones of that place and he placed them around his body and his head, and he lay down in that place to sleep. This is where he has the dream. He beheld a ladder standing firmly in the ground and sloping upward, its top reaching up towards the heaven. The angels of God who were accompanying him on a trip thus far were ascending it back towards heaven, for they were not permitted to leave the land of Israel. These were angels of the Holy Land. And other angels who were designated to accompany him who was outside the land of Israel were descending. And behold, God was standing over him to guard him during his sojourn in Haran. He said, I am God, God of Abraham, your forebear, and God of Isaac. I will give the land upon which you are lying to you and your descendants. Interestingly, that God had folded the entire land of Israel beneath his body, says the Medrash. That's an interesting concept there. Your descendants will be as numerous as the dust of the earth, and you will spread out powerfully to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south. And all the families of the earth will be blessed on earth, will be blessed through you and through your descendants. This is a nice blessing, right? Behold, you do not need to fear Esau or Lavan, for I am with you. I'll protect you wherever you go, and I'll bring you back to this land. For I will not neglect you by not providing you with food and clothing until I fulfilled what I promised Abraham concerning you. For I intend to fulfill all the promises that I made to Abraham, 177. through you and not through your brother Esau, including my promise that Abraham's children will remain true to their heritage. Esau's inheritance from Abraham will consist solely of the territory promised to him. He received Italy, by the way. Jacob awoke from his sleep and he said, "Ooh, God is truly present in this place. Yet I was not aware of it. Had I known that this was a holy place, I would not have slept here." He became afraid and he said, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than Mount Moriah, the future site of the house of God, the holy temple, and thus this is the gateway to heaven." Jacob rose early in the morning, took the stone he had placed under his head, and he set it up as a monument. He poured oil on top of it, consecrating it as an altar. He named that place Bethel, house of God, although the original name of the town was Luz. Jacob made a vow saying, "If God will be with me and will protect me physically on this journey I'm undertaking and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, and I will return to my father's house untainted by sin, and God will be my God, then this stone that I've set up as a monument will become a house of God. And I will set aside for you a tenth of everything that you give me, as my forebears did. I will give a tithe." So right here, we're introduced to Jacob as he's departing the promised land, the Holy Land. And you can tell that he's anxious. He's very concerned. But God assuages his anxieties. He says, "Listen, I'm God. I'm with you. You have nothing to fear." Why would God say you have nothing to fear? Unless, of course, he was experiencing fear. And he says, "I am planning on keeping you alive, and through you will be the blessing of prosperity, of a legacy, of eternity, of the inheritance of the promised land. You will outlive your enemies. Your children will be numerous as the sands of the earth," right? And Jacob reflects that vow by saying, "Listen, if that's the deal, I swear to, if you'll provide me with my needs and return me back untainted by sin, then I swear that I will serve you, God, and I will give a tithe." Right? So Jacob is now receiving the promise of safety and success in a place where he really wasn't expecting to be hanging out, right?
Well, he's still in Israel.
He's on the way out. Yeah, he's running away from his brother Esau's trying to kill him. So what we're looking at over here is a situation where, I mean, imagine you go to Harvard and your whole life you've trained for Harvard. And now you graduate from Harvard, and then due to change in life circumstances, you need to get hired as a janitor in a building in Boston. And you're like, this was not the plan, right? This is Jacob. This was happening. I'm the promised seed here. I'm the line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is me. Why am I running away from my life penniless? But now let's see what happens further in the portion. So I'm going to do a little fly through the portion on page 1.
This mount area is going to be a temple, but it doesn't become
Jerusalem.
Is that because that was Mount Moriah? Then?
Mount Moriah is in Jerusalem.
Right, but this is different. This is
Mount. No. He calls it Base El, which means house of God. Bethel means house of God.
Right. No, I understand it, but I thought he went to.
No, he was in Jerusalem. So what happens is he arrives in Charim Shur. We're doing a quick fly through over here. He meets Rachel, falls in love with her. Then he works for 7 years for her, for his father-in-law Lavan. Then there's the switch. He marries Leah instead of Rachel, right? Then he ends up marrying Rachel too. It becomes very complicated, right? Then you have the whole story of all the children being born. You have 11 tribes of the 12 tribes of Israel are born in the fertility struggles of the Weekly Torah Portion. Okay? And then eventually he's like, look, I got 11 kids. I got to get out of here. He was 84 years old when he arrived. I mean, he was already up there in age. And he then collects payment. He becomes exceedingly wealthy. I just want you to see how wealthy he became. It would be in the 6th aliyah here. Here it is. Page 191, bottom of page 91. Take a look what happens. So he's already had 11 kids, right? Benjamin will be born a little bit later. Remember, when Benjamin is born, Rachel dies. But then page 191 at the bottom, when he finally collects payment, it takes him 6 years to collect payment from his shrewd, wicked, cunning father-in-law. It says, the man thus became exceedingly prosperous. He owned abundant and prolific flocks, which commanded a high market price. So he was able to sell them at significant profit, and with these profits, purchase bonds, women who proved to be as fertile as his flocks. After having first purchased bondsmen to assist him in caring for his flock, he then also purchased camels and donkeys. I mean, he was running a whole enterprise here. He was great. He was running a Fortune 500 company, right? And now he realizes that his father was being very, very jealous of him, and he figures he's going to run away. And that takes us all the way through to the end of the portion. So this entire portion is Jacob running away from the promised land to Haran, and his entire duration over there, where we find that instead of failure, he actually becomes exceedingly successful. In a family sense, he marries 4 wives and 11 children. Talk about prosperous, right? Then he manages to become exceedingly financially wealthy. Now, isn't that interesting? This wasn't supposed to be. He was hoping to stay in the cocoon of the promised land. Yet somehow, miraculously, it was off the beaten path. It was not according to plan, where he succeeds beyond his wildest dreams and expectations. And right here, the Rebbe points out.
Some people marry one wife for their 11 children.
Right. This is true. 11 kids. Yep, that happens.
Yeah, you know that.
But and that happened not in Jerusalem and not in the home front. It happened.
You're not right. Yeah.
It happened in Palm Beach Gardens. Right?
Right.
So that's interesting, right? The prosperity happened far out. And this is where the Rebbe's message is here. It's an amazing message. When God created this world, we're learning in the Kabbalah seminar, the World of Kabbalah seminar, that there are many, many spiritual worlds that precede our physical world. This physical world is the world of spiritual blackout. There is no spiritual sensitivity whatsoever in this physical world. And that's a big statement. There's no spiritual sensitivity whatsoever in this physical world. In the worlds that precede this world, and we learned a concept called Seder Ishtalshelus, which is the series of divine devolution. This is how God descends level by level to engage with our physical world. Much like the process in which we go through a decision-making process. When you choose to build a house, you'll start off with a desire and a pleasure in owning your own home. And then you'll think it through, and then you'll feel the emotions, and then you'll think about it. Then you'll speak about it, and then you'll do it, right? There's a whole series of devolution. In much the same way, when God creates this world, he goes through that process. He goes through an energy of pleasure, an energy of desire. He goes through an energy of intellect, an energy of emotions. Then he goes through thought, speech, until eventually he goes through the world of action. And this is a very, very powerful concept, which I highly encourage you to study with me in the World of Kabbalah seminar. If you'd like to sign up to that, you could get it from the shul office here at office@jewishgardens.com. That's office@jewishgardens.com or jewishgardens.com. No, jewishgardens.com/wisdom center is where you'll find it. In any event, we find ourselves in the lowest world of this series of devolution. This physical world is where God put us. Shouldn't he have put us in a higher spiritual world, a world of spiritual consciousness? The world of Atzilus. Atzilus is where is the dawn of limitation, is the world where God, for the very first time, took his infinite power and allowed it to have some sort of limited characteristic. Tzimtzum, what we call the 10 sfirot, the 10 attributes, the 10 personality traits of God, right? That's a world in which divine consciousness is clear, is obvious and apparent. Even in the lower worlds of Beriah, which is creation, Yetzirah, formation, and Asiya, which is action, even in those worlds, which are still less in their divine revelation, even there is a godly perception and awareness. But in this world where he put us, there's a total spiritual blackout. Here in this world, this is where Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran and Farrakhan and you heard about the Palestinian Authority now. They came out with a statement that the October 7th massacre was perpetrated by Israel.
No.
That's what they said. Yep. So Bibi Netanyahu declared, he said that, the
How could they
Palestinian
be
Authority,
involved with the PA?
if the PA can't even acknowledge the Hamas massacre, then they have no right to even think of governing Gaza after Hamas is uprooted, right? So we're living in a world of pure, blatant lies. We're living in a world where Jews are being accused of massacring Palestinians when it's the Hamas, the Palestinians that started this war, right? This is a world which is called in the Kabbalah, Alma de Shikra, the world of lies. Alma de Shikra, it's a world of lies. It's a world of spiritual darkness. We're like Jacob in Haran and fury. Haran means fury or anger. Just like Jacob descends to a place where Lavan, his father-in-law, is constantly cheating him, lying to him, switching wives, switching his wages. Just like Jacob descends to this place called Haran, I just want you to identify personally with Jacob's descent in this week's Torah portion. Because Jacob, like Jacob, we too find ourselves in a world that's completely messed up. And it's infuriating. You look at your kids in college and you see what they have to deal with. You look at the teenagers in public school and see what kind of abuse and anti-Semitism they have to face. And you're wondering what's wrong with this world. Why are we even here? Couldn't we live in a world which is more of a Olam HaEmes, a world of truth? And here the Rebbe points out to us, no. What God desired was a home in the most dysfunctional of all worlds. This is the purpose of creation. God didn't desire a home in the spiritually sensitive world. He's already there. What he wanted is to place us in the most messed up, spiritually dysfunctional world, the world of lies and propaganda and anti-Semitism and hate. And here, we would have the courage, the character, the charisma, the mettle to stand for truth, to stand for godliness, for purpose, and for holiness, and to make meaning out of the madness of this world. That's why Jacob is the template for our lives. And just as Jacob exceeds his wildest dreams and expectations in Haran, establishing the most magnificent family, the 12 tribes of Israel. Where? Not in Israel. He does it there in Haran. And there he succeeds in becoming exceedingly prosperous, financially wealthy. Because that is the purpose for which our souls were dispatched to this world. You might be more comfortable in the promised land, but your purpose is not in the promised land. Your purpose is in the dark, dense fog of Haran. Our souls might be more comfortable in heaven where there is no anti-Semitism. But we were deliberately dispatched to this dark and dysfunctional world so that here we could declare Hashem Echad, the truth of one God. And that's why you'll notice all the mitzvahs are physical. You're supposed to lay tefillin with physical leather. Tzitzis is made out of physical wool. The sukkah is going to be built out of physical wood. All the mitzvahs, they're made out of physical objects. Why? Because God wanted this physical world to become an abode, a house, a conduit that is completely conscious and aware of the presence of God. All of our efforts over the past 3,335 years accumulate. Since the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, since God for the very first time descended at Mount Sinai, with shock and awe, he revealed his oneness in this world. And it was short-lived. It lasted just a few minutes, and then it was done. He left, and we were like, so for the next 3,000 years, we're trying to recreate that revelation that we experienced in Mount Sinai. And we do that one foot in front of the other, one mitzvah at a time, one meditation at a time, one davening at a time, one strength of character at a time, right? When, for example, somebody asks you to violate your values, right? And it's a very important client, that wants to take you to a non-kosher restaurant, or your boss is calling you and it's Shabbos, and you're like, do I take that call? And when you have the strength of character to say, no, my values override, Hashem is king, not my boss or my client. It's that strength of character that says, that draws divine awareness and consciousness into this dysfunctional world. And like Jacob, who experiences the most extraordinary astronomical success, specifically in the most dysfunctional places, we too will experience the same, as the accumulation of all of our actions over 3,335 years will culminate and the lights finally being turned on when this world becomes conscious and aware. When all the mitzvahs which we've infused into this physical world are like sleeper cells. They're like lights that are rigged to the system. When finally the switch goes on, there's lights everywhere, and the whole place will illuminate even more, much more than the spiritual heavens up above. In the words of Isaiah, for then the world will be filled with the consciousness, the awareness of God, as waters cover the ocean bed. That's how hard, how deeply infused our efforts will be in this world. That's why Jacob is the template for our lives. So it looks like your life is not working out the way it's meant to be. You didn't get the dream job. You didn't get the dream wife, husband. You didn't find the right circumstances. You're not making as much money as you were supposed to. And you feel like your life is totally messed up. No, this is exactly where you're meant to be. In this dysfunctional space is where you're supposed to reveal the presence of God. And that is the purpose of creation. How does that sound so far? Challenging?
It's very challenging. Really, it's very challenging.
Part of the Rebbe's positivity bias.
Right.
That every struggle is meant to be, and you need to overcome it. But it's not easy. That's not easy.
I just find it very empowering. It's liberating. Because you don't have to fight the system anymore. You don't have to say, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough. No, you can say, I'm great. I'm exactly where I need to be. This is where I belong. In this tax bracket and with this family. And some people have very dysfunctional families.
Yeah, I don't worry about that.
Some people have very unfulfilled marriages and very unfulfilled children-parent relationships, financially, in different places, And you could think like my life is a wreck, is a mess. But like Jacob, who descends to this place called anger, Haran, this horrible place. And there he discovers his destiny and his fortune. We too have to find strength in the Parsha of the weekend to say this is who we are with the children of Jacob.
Well, I think this dysfunctionality around your own life can turn you into something different. Can set you on a different path to be more like.
That's right. And let me show you something very interesting. I want to show you something very interesting at the beginning of the portion. So what happens is, at the very beginning of the portion, let's take a look, page 175. So we said that, how does Jacob experience God in the beginning of the Torah portion? Good morning, Susan and Elaine and Corey and Lauren and anybody else that might be joining us live or later. He experiences God in a dream. Very nice. Now, that's on the way out of the land of Israel. Let's fast forward as he comes back.
What page?
It would be at the very, very end of the Torah portion. Very last words of the Torah portion, the Maftir. Page 199. So now Jacob is coming back from Haran, from Iraq. He's going back to the promised land, right? Mm-hmm. So Jacob continued on his way. And angels of God who were stationed in the land of Israel went out to greet him and escort him back. Since their mission was to bring him into the land of Israel, they were permitted by God to leave its borders for this purpose and replace angels that had been accompanying him until then. When Jacob saw them, he said, this is God's encampment, and he named that place Machanaim, twin camps. What's the difference between the way he experienced God on the way out and the way he experienced God on the way back in? On the way out, he experiences God in a dream, in a vision, in a state of unconsciousness. Here, they bump into Vayifgeu bo malach Elokim. They came looking for him in a state of complete consciousness. Because not only had Jacob succeeded family-wise, 4 wives and 11 children, not only did he succeed financially, but even spiritually, he grew so much greater than he could have grown in the promised land, in the yeshiva of Shem and Aver, in the yeshiva of his father Yitzchak and his father Abraham. It was with Lavan, with a wicked swindler dealing with his purpose. Ask not what God can do for you, but what you can do for God, right? It was when he was doing his mission instead of doing what was comfortable for him. That's when he experiences divine awareness. When he rises to such great spiritual heights that instead of experiencing the angels in a dream, he experiences the angels in a state of consciousness. In reality, that's a very, very powerful spiritual manifestation. It's beautiful contrast from the very beginning to the very end of the Torah portion. And I think the lesson we have to take away from this, the lesson we have to walk away with over here today is that don't ever curse your luck, curse your fortune. Don't ever feel badly about how things turned out for you. Because if your life is dysfunctional, that's exactly the way it's meant to be. Jacob experienced a very dysfunctional life. Right? His brother was trying to kill him. His father-in-law hated his guts. He lived in a place surrounded by wicked people. And instead of crying out, "This is not fair," he just focused his efforts on doing what needed to be done, on being able to recognize his mission, to fulfill his mission wherever he was. He wasn't running to his therapist. He wasn't running to complain. He wasn't taking Valium. He was just doing what he had to do. And imagine if we could just do exactly the same thing. Stop complaining about how poor your parents were and they couldn't afford to send you to a Hebrew school and give you a proper Jewish education. Stop complaining about how caregivers mistreated you, or how you might not have as much money as you should have. Well, you are right now. You're giving it all you got. Are you learning Torah? Are you doing mitzvahs? Are you spreading the light, spreading the love? Invest yourself fully. Remember, we live in the most dysfunctional of all spiritual worlds. And hence, in this life as well, the more dysfunctional your life, the more it is aligned with the divine purpose, which is to illuminate the darkness. If we had to crystallize the role of the Jew, as taught by Chassidus, the role of the Jew is to be a transformer. The Zohar, the book of Kabbalah, tells us, Shraga b'tihara mayahane. It's in Aramaic. Shraga b'tihara, a candle in the afternoon, mayahane, what purpose does it serve? Imagine you light a candle in the middle of the broad daylight.
Can't see it.
It's useless. A candle you need for the darkness. That's what we need a candle for. Right? So the candle might be more, might enjoy being surrounded by light, but that's not what it's for. The purpose of the candle is to illuminate the dark. And to be a Jew means to light up the darkness. A light into the nations. To venture out to a place of unconsciousness and a lack of godly awareness, a place of anti-Semitism and hate. And there to be a voice of reason, a voice of purpose, to inspire, to lead, to illuminate. Some people with their oratory skills, some people with their pen, some people with their action, some people with their heart, some people with their personality. Every person's got a gift. Use your gift. Think about what's your toolkit. What's your toolkit? What's your skill? And use your skill to show the world a kiddush Hashem, a sanctification of the name of God. You look at the Israeli army right now; it's unbelievable. The most ethical army in the history of the world, literally fighting with their arm tied behind their back, providing fuel to their enemies, right? Enemies that are shamelessly hiding behind human shields, right? And yet, instead of giving collective punishment, as the British did in World War II, as the Americans and the Allies did in Iraq and in Afghanistan, and in Japan, exactly. Talk about collective punishment. The Americans did in Japan. We Jews, it's almost actually working against us. For us to not exercise collective punishment. The terrorists are running away together with the hostages, together with the civilians. They found in the Shifa hospital Hamas terrorist uniforms that were quickly disrobed. What does that tell them? They quickly changed into civilian clothing and they ran out. But they put it on a doctor's coat and they ran out, right? So we are showing the world integrity, honesty, truth. Now the world doesn't see it. At least it chooses not to see it. It's an interesting question. Personally, I think that by showing strength, that's the currency of the Middle East. Showing Menschlichkeit in the Middle East doesn't go very well.
I think it always was. To show
Every
strength.
time they made a deal with the Arabs, it always failed, always backfired. Oslo, Camp David, none of these deals are worth more than the paper that they signed on. I think in the Middle East, it's time for us to show the world strength, and that inspires compliance in the Middle East. And I hope that Israel will have the courage and the fortitude to do what they need to do instead of feeling insecure with their own identity as Jews, with their own identity as God's chosen nation, with their own identity as God's chosen people to receive the promised land. But either way, for us on our own personal journeys, to realize that our dysfunction is not our problem. It's our assignment. Have a good day, everybody.
And one other thing, you've got to keep your sense of humor.